Deborah Kagan, welcome to the Orgasmic Lifestyle Podcast. Thank you so much for taking part in this interview today. I'm very happy to have you here. For those who are unfamiliar with your work, could you tell us what you do?
Absolutely. I am a mentor for women, and I support you in reclaiming your confidence, feeling amazing in your skin, and living a turned on life.
So tell us what inspired you to follow this path.
It's so funny because I think when I think back when we're little girls, right? Like nobody wakes up. The title that I have given myself is Mojo Recovery Specialist, right? Because I talk about really rocking your mojo. And nobody wakes up at 7 and says, "Oh, gee, I want to be a Mojo Recovery Specialist." Like, it wasn't on the career list at school. And I think, for me, it's very much I was inspired by my own life, and also the moment where I felt like I had, quote, lost my mojo, even though I now know that's not possible. It just gets quiet. And so when I went on my own journey to discover how to own it, how to really cultivate it, how to be tapped into it on a regular basis, all of a sudden I realized, and women started to ask me, "What are you doing? And what's happening? And I need this as well." And I started this women's group out of my living room. And this was over almost 20 years ago now.
Oh, wow.
And so it was a real grassroots. Yeah, I didn't know what I was doing necessarily in terms of, I didn't come at it from, let me build a business. I came at it from, there's a need and a desire for that women are saying that they have and they want a safe space to talk about our bodies and our intimacies and our interpersonal relating, but on a romantic and a sexual level. And there are few to no places that are having these conversations in a way of a beautiful sacred woman's circle. And so it was really, this whole thing was birthed out of my living room.
So
And
how would you define Mojo? What is
so
Mojo?
Mojo is your life force. It's for all my yogis listening. You could say the word prana. For all of my Tai Chi or martial arts folks, you can call it Chi or Ki. Really, folks in Europe, you call it life force, sometimes call it sexual energy. It is the energy that is moving everything in life. There was a physicist in the 60s who discovered, the official word is the Higgs boson, but they nicknamed it the God particle. And they discovered this energy behind all of the other energies that is consistently moving and this forward thrust of life. And of course, metaphysicians and spiritual folks, like, we knew about it. We called it prana and chi and ki, right, for thousands of years. But now we've had science prove that there is this energy, and I like to call it Mojo.
I saw on your website that you have an acronym for Mojo. Could you tell us what that
Yes.
is?
Yes. So Mojo, a good 4-letter word. And what I developed was the Mojo 4-pillar system. And so this is the way that anytime you feel disconnected, you can look to any of these pillars. I like to think of, we're in the center, right, of these 4 pillars, like a beautiful kind of Roman columns, on each corner, holding up the structure of your life. So the M stands for your mindset. And I think it's fair to say that most of us need help because our minds are there to help us survive. They're not exactly the most sensual or delicious or erotic things on their own. They just want to save us from saber-toothed tigers and from starvation, right? At its basic level. So to create having a very mojolicious mindset is pillar number 1. Pillar number 2 is an O, and this is what I call your oracle. Now so we've got your mindset, that's your life above the neck. The oracle, it's your life below the neck. This is our body. And I call it the oracle because our body knows everything. It houses all the information. It has all the wisdom. It has all of the pains and joys and traumas and all of the things that we've experienced in this particular I also like to call it a rental vehicle, but it's an oracle because, again, your body knows what you need, how you actually feel. It has the information inside. And that's the second pillar, is to always tap back in to your oracle. And also, side note about the oracle, your mojo has a storehouse. And the storehouse, the actual living place of all of your mojo, is in your body below your belly button and above your pubic bone. We also, and in my book, we talk about this as the second power center, the second chakra. But that's where all of your creative life force, that juice, lives. Right. So to be able to access your mojo, you must be connected to your oracle. And then the third pillar is the J, and this is joining with all the different roles that you play in life, right? You're not just somebody who hosts a podcast, right? You're also this beautifully creative, artist, and, a writer, and all the, the other things that you do in your life. I am not, simply just a mentor for women. There's many different facets. Those, people listening, you might have children. You're not just a parent, or you're not just a partner to a lover or a spouse. You have careers, you have hobbies. But what happens is we get kind of shoved into kind of one or two roles. And it's usually, in our modern day life, 80 to 90% your work, and maybe, 10 to 20% a personal side. But there's all the rest of you. And maybe at some point someone said, oh no, you can't do that. Like, oh no, don't be an artist. Artists don't make any money. Or, oh no, you can't be a sexual being because you're going to be a slut, or you're going to, not find a good partner in life, or whatever. And so those parts of us, those roles that embody those parts, they go hide. They get shoved in a closet. They go under the rug. And then usually what I'm finding with the women I've worked with over 15 plus years now is about the age of the sort of mid 30s into your early 40s and then beyond, there's a moment where you go, where the hell did I go? Like, what happened to me? And this is why joining all of those roles gives you a sense of full self-expression.
So the J is joining, is that correct?
Yes. So it's joining with those roles. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And then the fourth pillar of Mojo is it's one of the favorites, I think, because it's one of the most direct transformative things, which is your oasis. And this is turning your environment, your home, your offices. I live in Los Angeles. We're in our cars a lot, even your car, and turning those spaces into an environment that feels like an oasis, so that it fuels you with mojo instead of depletes you.
Wonderful. When I think of oasis, I always think about meditation, how you kind of create your own inner refuge as well. Could that be part of it too?
Yeah, well, also creating, whether it's a meditation space, but or I'm a big proponent of creating, altars, little ones, small ones, big ones, even if it's just an image that you love, and, putting a flower by it. They don't have to be complicated, nor do they have to be connected to any particular religion. It's all about, again, having a space that is this oasis that lights you up, right? It's very personal. So creating those environments that give you your mojo, that really, every time I walk through my door, I say hello to my house.
Nice.
And I literally am so grateful, because it is such a divine expression of who I am, that it lights me up. It fills me up every day. And when you do create that, you will have more mojo on a regular basis.
Amazing. So what is a typical day's work for a mojo recovery specialist?
Well, the beautiful thing is there's no typical day. That's the cool thing. I definitely feel like I'm a creative at heart. So I would be terrible at a 9-to-5 office job. It's just, it's not for me. But, there are some days where there are what I call client days. And so I'll be working with the women, whether they're in my mentorship program and we're having a group call, which we do regularly, or I'm doing one-on-ones with them. It could be doing things like this, where I'm having the opportunity to speak to you, or other people, other podcasts. Writing content, that's also something I'm sure you know as well. It's a big part of what we do. So every day it's a little bit different. I do my best to give myself a healthy balance of structure and free time. And I also am very committed to making sure that there's always fun and pleasure involved in every day. Because what's the point otherwise? Really, I believe we're all here, for our own unique reasons. We all have our own gifts. And if we're not having fun, and I did that for quite a while, where it was just grind and push. And I think that's also what helped to kind of throw me into the work that I do, because I threw out my adrenals and actually got very sick. And so what I've realized after all of those years is, if we're not having fun, what's the point? Yes, of course, there are moments to be, quote, serious, and we need to do our projects and whatnot. And you can still have fun in the midst of that, right? So that's a big part of my day-to-day as well.
Wonderful. So back to Mojo, what are the signs that your Mojo is off? And how do we get back to it? Because this is a big part of what you do in your courses, I imagine.
Yeah, absolutely. And when you're in that real kind of grind mode, it's just work, 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 or we're just taking care of the errands and there's no joy, there's no pleasure. It is just task after task after task. And if you actually stop for a moment, you'll realize there is tension all over the body. Your jaw's probably really tight. Like, that's not the first sign, but you'll know if you're in just a consistent loop of task and grind and work and push, that you're probably disconnected from your mojo, most likely. The other thing is that you are most likely also not feeling very turned on. Doesn't even have to be sexually turned on, but you're not turned on to your life. Like, again, there's no joy, there's no pleasure present. There's no sort of delight in, oh my goodness, when you're walking down the street, did you see that rose and then stop and actually, smell the rose? Or, did you stop to admire the beautiful sunset that was peeking through the buildings, as you were driving home? You will be devoid of the delight in life. And that's another sure sign that you are, disconnected from your mojo. And if you're feeling stressed, whether it's stress comes in numerous forms. There's emotional stress, there's psychological, mental stress, there's physical stress, and also nutritional stress. So if you're feeling more overwhelmed and more engulfed by stress, that's when there's a disconnect between you and your mojo.
So tell us about your Fire Up Your Mojo course.
So yes, I led these Fire Up Your Mojo masterclasses, and those were they came from questions through the community, and also through people connecting with me on Instagram. And so what I decided to do was put together masterclasses on different topics, like firing up your divine feminine mojo, firing up your sex mojo, firing up, so there were all these different levels of mojo and these different topics that we did a deeper dive on. And so those are all now archived, and they are part of the Mojo library that people can get access to. Because what's fascinating is there's more available in these realms of connecting to our life force, connecting to our divine feminine, really, than there ever have been before. When I started, almost 20-ish years ago in this particular realm, there wasn't a lot in this conversation. There, of course, was some, but it was harder to find. And what I love is that there are so many more people that are having these conversations, and that these topics are more normalized. Venus, like you are bringing so much more awareness and education and availability to these topic matters as well. And I think, we all have our own way to bring the dialogue
Mhm.
And for me, my whole purpose is, let's just light up as many women as possible to connect with their mojo, because the more of us that are in a state of what I like to say mojo-liciousness,
Mhm.
then the better we all are, our communities, our families, wherever we work. So however women get to it, I'm excited. Like, let's get to it.
Do you have 3 simple tips that anyone could do on a, let's say, on a daily basis that someone could do just to kind of get back into it a
Absolutely.
little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. And the first thing, which seems so simple, and there are some women who have written back to me on social media at times and said, and this seems too easy. And the thing that I always say about that is, see, easy doesn't necessarily mean that it won't be effective.
Mhm.
Well, and actually, I'm going to rephrase that. Simple. There are many things that are simple, and they can be wildly effective. One of my teachers that I studied under for a decade, he said, 1 ounce of a remedy or a tool or a technique, 1 ounce can create thousands of pounds of change. That's actually simple. Where it might not be easy is you actually taking that technique and doing it in your life. It's the taking the action step that I see that most people have more difficulty with. So things that are so simple, and particularly for us that are more, we have more connection to our feminine energy. Most women on the planet are in their nature connected to feminine energy. This is not gender, male, female. This is just qualities of energy like yin and yang.
Mhm.
And so if you are more naturally connected to that yin, that feminine state, you like to complicate things. And I'll be the first to raise my hand because my nature is deeply feminine. And the feminine likes to complicate stuff. It likes more color. It likes, more stuff. It likes the sparkle. It likes, its energy is kind of everywhere all at once, which is why there's that complication. So when something that is very simple shows up, we start to go, well, how could that possibly work? It's too simple, right? But someone with a much more masculine nature who gets that same technique and sees the simplicity of it is like, oh, for fuck's sake, that's fantastic, right? Because the masculine in all of us likes the simplicity. It likes the A to B. It's that linear notion. So when we are presented, and I'm going to get back to some tips, and share in a moment, but I think it was important because a lot of times something very simple can be shoved off or really discarded because it seems like it might not make a difference. All right. So one of the first things you can do to connect to your mojo, that's where we're going.
Mhm.
I didn't forget, is where I already mentioned our power center, where all of your mojo lives, is between your belly button and your pubic bone. Goes from the front of the body to the back of the body. So first thing in the morning, if you simply place your hand on that low belly
Mhm.
and literally just say, hello, right? You could even say,
Mhm.
hello, Mojo, if you want. The I would gather, I'm, from again, my experience over these nearly 2 decades of this is most people have never done this before, to take that moment to actually consciously connect to their source of mojo. So when you do that on a daily basis, and if you commit to that for 7 days, just try 1 week. Say hello, keep your hand there, and see if you can breathe deeply into that low belly. Most of us are breathing in our upper chest. It's more fight or flight. We're in a very fast paced world. When we're stressed out, our breath barely gets past our upper chest and our clavicle. So when we breathe deep into our low belly, you're internally stoking the flame of your mojo. Okay.
Mhm.
So now we have this external, very somatic, simple gesture, hand on low belly, hand on power center. That's the external somatic. Now we've got the internal deep breath that we combine. We're turning up the dial on your mojo. And within a week, you might not feel like Superwoman, and you will absolutely feel a difference, whether that's more energy, whether you feel more calm in your just state of being, whether you feel more juicy in your own body. It could go from there, right? So that's one thing for sure that will connect you with your mojo. The next thing that I really love, and it's, super fun, and it's a very popular, easy, again, simple technique, is what I call sassy hip circles. All right.
Okay.
And sassy hip circles are really just that. They are very slow rotation of your hips. So, like when we were kids, we were little girls. Did you ever like kind of put your hand on your hip and stick it out real far and kind of go na 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 na?
Mhm.
Did you do that?
Maybe we're trying to do hula hoop. That's all I can think
Yes,
of. Yeah.
exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
So I always say when I demonstrate this, at my talks or, any events, live events that I do, we'll just stick out your hip really far to one side, and then you just start to slowly rotate it back. So your pelvis is tilted backwards and then to the side, and then push your pelvis forward. And you just do it nice and slow. So it's these sassy hip circles, right? Not too fast. Like you're
Mhm.
moving through honey or molasses. And I always like to say, make sure you rotate to both sides, right? Do some rotations to one
Mhm.
side and then the other, so you balance things out. I'll do this while I'm making a cup of tea in the morning.
Mhm.
I'll do this when I'm brushing my teeth. I'll do this when I'm standing in front of the closet going, I don't know what the hell I want to put on my body today, right? What this does, again, right? Our power center is located in that low belly. Well, our hips, and again, particularly for women, right? They are, I like to say, the parentheses holding your power center in place. So when you move your hips, and this is why dancing can be so mesmerizing and so powerful and so magnetizing to so many people. When you move your hips, you're awakening that mojo. You're saying, "Ooh, okay, I'm alive. I'm here. I'm juicy. I'm in the oracle. I'm not just stuck in my head of the to-dos of the day. Whew, I am now grounded and I'm present." And now your mojo is like, "Oh, okay. You want to actually play with me. Like you want to have a relationship with me." So
Mhm.
this is another beautiful thing to do to awaken that mojo. Super simple and actually a lot of fun. And finally, a third thing that you can do to tap into your mojo on a regular basis is to just spend a moment, communing with nature.
Mhm.
Now, I'm from New York City originally. Now I've lived in Los Angeles a long time, so I understand if you're in a concrete jungle or if you're, in a more metropolis, type
Mhm.
of space, that you might think, well, okay, what? I have to go and take a weekend trip, and no. You can go there. There are trees everywhere, right?
Mhm.
You can find a tiny little park in the midst of a city. If you're in some place that is just more nature all around, great, even easier. You could simply put your back up against a tree. I'm a tree hugger, so I'll
No, me
put my
too.
front,
Me
I'll
too.
put
Me
my
too.
back, right? Right. I
Mhm.
mean, just like I want to just like get all up in it with a tree. But for some people who that might feel a little strange, you can just like lean up against a tree and
Mhm.
just feel that sort of magnitude, the support, feel that mojo of the tree. There is an energy, an essence, a life force that is moving through it, and allow yourself to just be supported by that. Have a moment with the bird flying by, have a moment with the cat that's walking across the street. If you have a pet, that's great. That's nature too. So having a real awakened, conscious moment with nature automatically synchronizes that life force that nature has no problem with, right? There's never been a rose bush that is like, oh, I don't know if I can bloom today. Like I'm
Mhm.
thorny,
Mhm.
like the hibiscus over there, she's kind of smooth. Like maybe I shouldn't grow. Like the rose is just going, I am going to be a rose. It's
Mhm.
like, so everything in nature is going to be what it's going to be because it is just pure mojo life force surging through it at all times without question. So when we connect with nature, you don't have to be hippie crunchy about it, right? It's just literally about infusing yourself and regulating your own kind of nervous system and your own body with nature to inspire your life force, your mojo to be even freer.
I'm really inspired now. I'm going to start doing that from tomorrow and change my walk to my office and go via a park.
Hey.
Definitely good advice. I think it's really important as well, like putting the hand on the belly, because I think it's also a place of a lot of shame, not just like sexual shame, but I think people just want to stuck their bellies in all the time and all that. So I send love to that area. It's very, very important.
Yeah. I mean, I had most of my life, and I still have to check myself, really, shame about my belly. I've always had, even when I was little, I've always had, I call it now the goddess pooch.
Oh, yeah.
I've always had a little extra in the belly. And, it took me a long, long time to even get to a space of accepting, like, okay, well, there is this sort of extra flesh or a little, more of a curve out. It's never been a, concave or a flat situation for me. And yeah, so having that moment with yourself is another way to just say, hey, I love you. I'm here. Thank you. And I even on a simple level of like, thank you for digesting my food also.
Definitely.
Right.
So let's talk about your book. One of the best things about being a podcaster for me is I'm a big bookworm, so I love reading, and also it's a huge privilege to actually interview the authors. And I have here on my bookshelf, I've got a whole bookshelf just with podcast guests' books, which is hugely amazing. And I read your book Undressed, which was I just finished it yesterday. I've been reading it for about a month on and off, and it was kind of it wasn't what I expected, to be honest, with the title and the cover. I thought it was going to be like a body positivity.
I have it.
Wow, I love it.
I have it there.
Amazing. So when I saw that Undressed and then the kind of the photo you have, I assumed it would be body positivity. And then I was really surprised to see the structure of the book. And I'm really into chakras, energy centers, etc. And I just thought it was such an original structure. Would you like to tell us about it and what inspired you? And tell us about the structure, what inspired you to create this book in this way?
Well, it's interesting, and the creative process, right, it's so not linear, at least not in my experience. And so this book came to me almost 10 years ago, the seed of it, the germ of it. And what I knew at that time was there were these stories, these erotic memoir stories that I felt like I needed to tell. I didn't know why, but I just felt like I needed to tell them. And I do appreciate structure because that really helps me to then go in and create something. So as I was just feeling into the stories and why would I want this book and why would I want to put them in a book and so on and so forth, all of a sudden, I got this download. I call them shoves from above, right? Like these very strong intuitive knowings. And I all of a sudden I just got, oh, it's 7 sections, and each story is actually representative of the moment, and that I got the opportunity to sink into each of the 7 power centers in a new way and understand the qualities and the embodiment of those through these experiences I had with lovers, and actually one self practice and on my own. So that's how it kind of came about. And so I went, okay, great. Now I have this 7 section structure. And it was just these stories. And as time developed, I went, hang on a second. Women ask me about this. Like, how do I get into my erotic nature? How do I own more of myself sensually and sexually? And so I realized this book is this combination of let's learn about the power center so you understand what it is and what the qualities of it are and how you know when it's working and how you know when it's kind of off kilter. Here's a little kind of get you in the mood story to realize there's other women, like you that might have desires or fears or concerns around sexuality and sensuality and how we're being perceived and, what wakes us up and so on and so forth. So that's the erotic story that happens. And then the end of the section is your turn. where I guide you through a spiritual and a sexual practice to be able to awaken and embody that power center in a much more, I think, holistic way. But you read it, so you can speak to that.
Yeah, I really loved it because I love structure as well, and I like how everything's mirrored. So you've got this personal story of yours, and then you've got the part which is about the balance and the harmony, disharmony. And also I loved how you introduced crystals. I'm a massive crystal lover as well,
Mhm.
and essential oils in some cases, and just this like a solo practice. I think it's really important to have some variety in masturbation, not just like, hand to genitals. There's a lot more to it, so it's nice to have
Yeah.
some guidance in that respect. Yeah, but I love crystals especially, and also in some of them that they were levels as well, so that's kind of
Yeah.
interesting as well. So you can actually go back and do these things over and over. But it really opened my mind because I've been kind of going through this situation where it made me analyze a relationship I've been living with of my journey with one person through the different chakras, and it really opened my mind. I identified that the blockages were the solar plexus. This is before I got to the solar plexus chakra, but it just made me think about my relationship with one person, and how I was relating on different areas,
Mhm.
and how the solar plexus is not, it's not a chakra I would particularly buy crystals for, but I realized that was a source of my blockage. And then your story was really, I just thought it's interesting about how we get validation from others, and it just really spoke to me because I've been going through this sacral moment as well. And since I identified that, I actually started listening to more sacral chakra singing bowl tracks
Mhm.
and things like that. So it's really
Beautiful.
interesting. Yeah, it's really interesting. Also, I identified that the throat, the communication was something that was being blocked with me with this person. So everything else was fine, but it's just like those two areas, and I was able to communicate with them about it. So it was thanks to your book I actually wrote this chakra report. So it was really
Amazing.
interesting. Yeah. So I thought it was very eye-opening.
I
How
love that. I love that
mm,
feedback. And yeah, it's
mm,
the thing that I do want to mention is the book really is written, and those your turn sections are written, for women. So to do for yourself, by yourself, with yourself,
mhm,
because definitely one of the soapboxes I stand on is for you to understand how you work. How do you feel? What turns you on? Touching your body in all different ways,
mhm,
experiencing your sexuality, your sensuality in all different ways, so that not only are you more comfortable in your own skin, you can then communicate that to a partner, right? And
mhm,
there's some suggestions in some of the sections where I say, if you do have a partner and you would like to, explore this practice with them, okay, here's how you could. Um, the intention was for women to be able to get just so comfortable, because the amount of times that I ask a woman who will again be at a live event of mine or in one of my programs, I'll say, have you looked at your vulva?
mm.
And so many women say, No, like never looked
Wow,
at
it's
their
crazy.
vulvas. Right. And so it's this is also just this kind of clarion call to say, ladies, please,
Mm,
just know yourself. The kind of confidence, that personal confidence, and I'm sure you can speak to this too, but that comes from really knowing and looking at yourself, exploring yourself, having reverence for this amazing oracle that we're in, just changes how you maneuver in your life.
mm.
Have you found that with your healing over the years? And
I've always been really sexual. So for me, it was something that I learned very early on. For me, it was the A spot, like near the cervix. And
Mhm.
I just had these epic orgasms from the second time I ever had sex. And all my friends were like, what are you talking about? So I think God just made me orgasmic. I mean, maybe like you, I didn't choose this role, like it chose me. So I
Yes.
find that I've always loved my vulva. And I had the opposite of many people watching porn. I thought my vulva was way nicer than the ones I saw in porn. So, so I wasn't intimidated. I just really loved that part of my body. And I've also been, drawing nudes for many years. There's a great poem called, a great painting called L'origine du monde, the origin of the world, which is just a woman with her legs open. It's from 19th century French painting. And it's
Mm.
very scandalous at the time. And I just love depictions of naked
Yes.
women. That's why I chose the name Venus, because I was very into the goddess and
Yes.
celebrations of women's bodies. Yeah.
Yes.
So I haven't
You
really
and
lived that
we,
personally, and I've always had mirrors, and been very curious. So it seems strange to me to not discover your body. But it was very, really interesting. This is the first time I ever removed pubic hair. Was very weird. It's like, oh my God, it was just such a weird thing to see your vulva, like, again, like with no hair. It was very, very interesting to see the shape, because sometimes it's always hidden by hair, so that was an
Mhm.
interesting vulva connecting moment.
Yes. Yes.
Definitely.
Yeah. The more that we
Mm.
can, just enjoy, discover, play again, it goes back, I think, to that fun and play.
Mm.
Yeah.
Also enjoying the smell. I think it's really important to like smell your underwear and enjoy it. And I smell my sex toys after. I mean, I send a lot of love to my vulva, and it's been
Yeah.
very kind to me in return.
Yeah, good. And by the way, and I love that you just brought that up, because that's a great way to also know in terms of the health of your
Mm.
vulva, right? So if you
Yeah.
really know, okay, this is what's my kind of regular smell,
Mhm.
right? Then you'll know, oh, okay, if there's something off, right? And it helps you to be, again, more educated just about your own sexual wellness.
Definitely. And so many women are ashamed of the appearance and the smell that they're missing out on incredible cunnilingus. And that makes me
Yeah.
very sad.
Yes. Yes, I agree with you. I always say, please worship at the temple.
Definitely, definitely. So, your book is just very enlightening for me, and it's coming out in October. Is that correct?
It is the publication, they call it the street date is October 24th. It's available for pre-order right now. And I put together a couple really great bonuses for those of you who do pre-order. And I was just learning this myself. I have self-published my first book, and this is with a publisher, this Undressed Now, my second book. And what I'm learning is that pre-orders are game changing for the life of a book, because
Okay, interesting.
pre-orders are making a vote. It says, hey, I want this information. This information is important. So the book publisher, booksellers like Amazon, Barnes and Noble, other independent stores, they will all of a sudden go, oh, wait, this book is, getting a lot of pre-orders. Maybe we should pay attention to it.
Mm.
And so it really, really helps the life of the book. And of course, for anyone who's interested in sexual wellness and to have women's voices out in the world, it's a vote for that. So that's an encouragement and an ask for listeners to do. Please pre-order it, because I also put together these bonuses. And one of them that people are loving, I'm getting such good feedback on, is the audio. I put together an audio where I read you the beginning of the book, and you get that right away. So as soon as you pre-order and you sign up to get the bonuses, you'll get that audio. There's a beautiful confidence journal that is put together for you as well. And actually, I'm teaching. This is a brand new masterclass on Eros 101. So that's another bonus. That is when you pre-order Undressed.
Amazing. So you do so many different things: events, writing, podcasts, coaching. Tell us about public speaking. Do you have any tips?
About public speaking?
Yeah, I'm interested, because I want to become a public speaker. I'm doing stuff myself, but it's kind of sometimes it can be hard to convey your true personality on stage. That's part of your mojo. How do you express your mojo on stage? Because that's a very
Well, that's the whole thing.
terrifying.
It's connecting with your mojo.
Yeah.
I mean, the more comfortable you get and the more connected you get with your mojo, the easier it is to simply be you in whatever situation you're in. Okay. So that's just really number one. Number two, this is also where joining with your different roles comes into play. Because your mojo, again, is your life force. You have it 24/7. It never goes away. You're born with it. You are going to have it until the moment that you take your last breath. And then, it will disperse into all consciousness, like with the rest of you. But this life force is always within you. It's just a matter of turning the volume dial up or down for when and how you choose. The joint for public speaking, though, joining with your different roles, massively handy, right? Because the role that is that gets on stage for me when I do my live events, when I speak at other people's events, so on and so forth, that her name is D-Rock. Okay. And that is a part of me that knows the stage, loves the stage, is super confident on the stage. She has kind of like a signature look. All of your roles have different looks, by the way. I like to think of an obvious example of this is when Beyonce would talk about her creating Sasha Fierce,
Okay.
right? So she's like, Beyonce doesn't necessarily get on stage because she's got the jitters and the this and that, but Sasha Fierce, oh, Sasha Fierce is like, she's the one who gets up there and just rah and does it. So there's a part of you, Venus, right? That is the part of you that's like, yes, I can be on stage and like, this is my domain. And it's about tapping into that part of you. It's not pretending to be something. I want to be really clear about that because it is you. It's simply an aspect of you, though, that you're going to want to dial the volume up on when you're on stage and doing public speaking. But you don't want to necessarily, you don't want to go on a date, with that role because hi, I'm right. And then it's like you show up as your, stage presence. I mean, maybe there's somebody out there who's going to love that all the time, but most likely you'll show up as, more of your Mojo-licious femme role when you go on a date, right? It's just a different aspect. This is why the J of Mojo really also gets some play and it's important to know that as well.
Fantastic. So let's tell us about your podcast. What's your podcast called?
It's The Real Undressed. And it's all conversations about sexuality and spirituality. So I bring on experts in the field, both of those fields. And we have amazing conversations that drop on Fridays. And so the bridge and also the new book Undressed it's bridging the sexual life and the spiritual life. And when I say spiritual, I don't mean religion. I really just mean whatever it is for you that connects you to your higher self, that connects you to your knowing of what divine is for you. And those two realms have been kept, I think, very strategically over thousands of years, extraordinarily separate and also like at loggerheads with each other. But when we bring together our spirit and our sex, we realize again that everything is connected, that including you and you and everything, and also you and then your lover, your partner that you are sharing yourself with sexually. And the enormity of grace and pleasure and sacredness that can come from literally coming when you join your spirit and your sex is hard to describe in words because it is so extraordinary. And the seventh story in the book, in Undressed, it talks about that, really, of that moment of knowing, of having that very visceral experience. And this is the story of where I pleasured myself. And so it was a solo experience. It changed my life. And I'm very passionate about bringing these two topics together under one roof. So on the Real Undressed, the podcast is that place. So Fridays I'm in conversation with a guest and we've got to have you on.
Oh, I'd love to go on.
Would love that. And Tuesdays are what I call Truth and Tequila, because I'm a big fan of tequila and mezcal. But they're short solo episodes where I drop a little Mojo content every Tuesday. So yeah, that's the podcast.
Amazing. So a couple of quick questions for you. What's the book that changed your life?
Oh gosh. I too adore books. And so this is a very difficult conversation. I have a library that is giant. What's coming through right now is Seed of the Soul by Gary Zukov. And I read it nearly 30 years ago. And it confirmed everything I felt in terms of who we are as a soul. Not just this sort of flesh thing, this rental vehicle thing that we walk around in. And it really, it got me on a path, a deeper path of consciousness at that time that I think radically helped to open up all the avenues of where I've come to today. And it helped me to understand the energetic realm of life in a different way. It helped me to understand more of my mission and who I am, again, outside of the, flesh and bone. And that made a big, big difference in how I show up in the world. So yeah, and it was great. I hosted the a book club this year, and that was the first book that we read for it. So it was really great.
You've also mentioned the book that changed my life in Undress, which is Think and Grow Rich. So I was happy to see
Yes.
that there, because it's just such a great book about success. And you're
Yes.
thinking, why are they talking about sex in this book? It's or sexual energy. That kind of opened
Yes.
my mind, because I was thinking, I thought I was in the first 9 years of my work, I was focused on overcoming taboo and pleasure. And now I'm into this top level of power of sexuality, which is a whole new understanding of it.
Mm-hmm. And one of the best quotes, I think, from that book is those who lack the mojo. I mean, he
Mm,
uses the phrase sex energy, same thing, right? But those who lack the mojo will never be enthusiastic
mm,
nor inspire others with enthusiasm. And
mm.
that's in that chapter on, sex transmutation. So it's just amazing. I love that book so much.
Yeah, it talks about public speaking, your voice, how you walk, how you dress,
Yes.
your handshake, your charisma,
Yes.
magnetism as well. Another
Exactly.
question for you. What's the phrase or affirmation that you live by?
This comes from my grandma,
Mm,
who taught me from a very young age, and she's really the inspiration why I do what I do. But she always would say, be beautiful from the inside out. And I realized what she's talking about is our mojo. It's our light. It's that inner light.
mm,
And no matter what body shape we are, no matter what clothes we're wearing, no matter what makeup we have on or don't have on, or whatever it is, that inner light is undeniable. And when you are beautiful from the inside out, people feel it. You make people feel lit up when, they're around you, and you really are a contribution wherever you go.
wonderful. It's a beautiful message. So where can people find you?
Well, my website, Deborah-Kagan.com. And also there's therealundressed.com if you want all things podcast. I like to play mostly on Instagram. So it's at Deborah Kagan on Instagram. And I think, yeah, those are the good spots.
Amazing.
And
And it's Deborah with an H. It's Deborah with an
it
H.
is Deborah. And,
Wonderful.
like you, I joke around sometimes, but I like to say also, I'm very Googleable.
Okay. Great. So thank you so much for joining us today on the Orgasmic Lifestyle Podcast. It's definitely been a pleasure. It's been Mojalicious.
Thank you. I again really appreciate you and everything that you're doing for this whole conversation for us in terms of pleasure and sensuality and sexuality. So thank you for what you're doing.
Thank you. Thank you so much. That means a lot.